Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martirano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Behavioral Corner. I'm Steve Martirano. I hope you know what the deal is by now. We hang here at the intersection of what's happening, and we run into great people. That's why we picked this corner. It's our corner, and we're here talking about behavioral health in a very strict sense. Behavioral health encompasses, we like to say, everything. Every decision you make, everything you choose to do affects your behavioral health emotionally, physically, psychologically. So we talk about a lot of different things, and we run into great people who have great stories. I'm going to begin by straightening out a quote that has bothered F. Scott Fitzgerald scholars for a million years, and that is that Fitzgerald never really said there's no second acts in American life. He's always quoted as having said that, but in fact, he was saying something quite the opposite. You know, you literary guys, look it up. But what he was really saying is, yeah, there are second acts, and we have got a dandy for you, a dandy second act in an American life. Chris Therien has had a remarkable career. There's no other way to describe it. An association with sports and the city of Philadelphia for 14 years. He was a defenseman for the franchise. In fact, the longest tenured defenseman in franchise history. So he's a Flyer through and through. And then 13 more years as a TV hockey analyst, covering the team. So over a quarter of a century of deep involvement in sports and athletics and broadcasting, which is a pretty nice first act by anybody's dimensions. Unfortunately, the whole thing was marred by a serious substance abuse problem, in this case, alcohol. And Chris has joined us to talk about his struggles with alcohol, what it cost him, and how ironically, it has set up, as I say, is a pretty remarkable second act that he's just about to launch right now. So we welcome Chris Therien to the Behavioral Corner, or AKA Bundy.
You can go with that for sure. Absolutely. Okay. Great to be on.
Tell me where Bundy came from, first of all.
You know, I get that question a lot, and hopefully one of these days I'll have answered it for the last time. But you know what? I was in my, literally in like the first week of my career. I hadn't even played a game for the Flyers yet, and Craig McTavish was the perennial kind of leader at the time of the team that came in. He won a cup with the Rangers the year before the Flyers signed him in the offseason. And I would be like the first kid in there. I was, maybe 22 or whatever it was when I first came in. And sitting there watching like Nickelodeon or whatever channel it was, Married with Children. And, Al Bundy and me have kind of a striking resemblance, like in terms of our antics, not necessarily our looks, but, kind of our, off-ice antics. And McTavish had another teammate that reminded him of me. His nickname, I guess, was Bundy. He wasn't around for a long time. But then he said, you looked at the TV and said, you know what, you remind me exactly of that guy right there sitting on the couch. And it ended up being Al Bundy. So I always say it's Al Bundy, not Ted. And that's a good thing.
Oh, I
yeah.
Wow, I didn't even thought of that. Anyway, yeah, it's better than Ted. That's for damn sure. What is it about hockey guys? Hockey players, first of all, all guys like nicknames. They like giving nicknames. Somehow cool. Hockey guys have this unique, at least in Philadelphia growing up, they seem to, when they didn't want to resort to something clever like Bundy, they would just add an IE to everybody's last name. So it was Clarky, and it was Leachy. I don't know, it was crazy.
Yeah. Or Billy. Billy Barber's is Bill Lee. It always had something on IE or like a Y on the end of their nickname.
I know. I think that's a hockey shortcut myself.
It is.
Otherwise you got to come up with something. Anyway, for folks, like I say, there's a lot of people in this town who know a lot about you, but for folks who don't, where are you from?
Well, I was born in Ottawa, Canada. It was early 1970s. I'm not going to say how early, but it was in the early 70s. And you know what? I was raised there until my mom and dad had a sister till 15 years old, and very humble beginnings. Very small home in Ottawa, about 10 minutes from a downtown area. It was a beautiful place to grow up. It gets cold in the winter. We had a great skating rink. it was in Ottawa really where I first developed my love for the sport of hockey. And of course, we had enough outdoor venues and different types of places we could get to, especially the Rideau Canal, who, is a 6 kilometer long essentially skating rink that's open in the winter. And we lived 5 minutes from it. So I'd get dropped off. My dad would leave me at one end. I'd skate to the other, and he'd be waiting there to pick me up some days. So, and if not that, we were playing pickup hockey at the community rinks under the lights with snow falling. Like I said, it was a good childhood for me. I had just amazing memories. And when I was 15 years old, still kind of young, I had a very, very interesting kind of hockey career in my teens, pre moving to the U.S. I've been cut from 2 teams at 13 or 14 years old, and I skied for a whole year. I quit hockey and skied for an entire year. It was like $2 a night to go skiing. So I figured, I'd be happier skiing for $8 a week than going out to get hockey and getting cut at every corner. And you know what? Luckily, as I ended up being it from 15 years old. I've pretty much been in the United States the entire time. I went to Northwood Prep School in Lake Placid. I went in as, kind of a project. No one knew who I was. No one knew what I was. And, at the end of the day, when I look back at Northwood now, I'm in their Hall of Fame for athleticism. And, and again, that's for me is where the journey began was when I took that step and did 3 years of U.S. high school at Northwood. My second year, my dad, and the only reason that happened was my dad believed in me. He believed in me as an athlete and who I was as a person. That's why he was, made that small financial wager at the time to get me out of Ottawa, get me to the U.S. He was a U.S. collegiate. He played at St. Lawrence. And from that point, my career really took off. I still, even amazingly, when I went to Northwood my first year, I still got cut from the varsity team and played JV my whole sophomore year. And like I tell my son, who's the same age now at 14, I said, at the end of my JV year, I was the best player in the JV. And to show you how bodies change, when I went in as a junior, I was the best player on the varsity team right away. So, again, it's just odd how things like that kind of shape up. And I always tell kids now, don't fall in love with who your child is at 12 or 13. Because when I was 12 or 13, I was probably, 5'1" and 5'1" wide. I didn't know I'd grow to, 6'5" and 225 or 230 pounds by the time I was 18 years old. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot as a parent from my memories about what, I've done with my kids and their athletics now. And I remember that. I remember it vividly, some of the pain that I went through with being cut and how resilient I had to be, but if it wasn't for my mom and dad, especially my dad, I would never have had that opportunity again. I would have probably stopped playing hockey altogether and we wouldn't be talking right now, Steve.
Yeah. We all know the Gretzky stories and the Tiger Woods stories, the immediate prodigies. Everybody sees them coming a million miles away. We often forget, and you're living proof of this, that there's another whole class of athletes who succeed at a pretty high level for a very long time, who just had to keep proving themselves every time they skated out on the ice or, went out onto the field to play. And that shapes you for sure. They keep telling you you're not good enough and you keep going, well, I'm going to try again. That comes in handy, I know, in your story about alcoholism, because you did have a relapse, and relapse is like getting cut. It's like getting cut. You got to bounce back from it. Anyway, when did the drinking start for you? Did it start the way it does for most of us? You're a young guy and you're having a beer with your pals. Is that how it started for you?
It was very, when I go back to the beginning, I was a very vanilla type of kid, like I didn't drink in high school. In the summers you go out and have a couple nights like everyone else did, but it was not a focal point to me. Hockey was a focal point to me at, 18, 19. And when I went to Providence College from Northwood. And I became, I was a college partier like anybody else, but I was no more or no less than anybody else. So,
yeah.
When I look at it, there's a lot of that, and certainly, when I went and played for the Canadian Olympic team in the 93-94 season, again, you're kind of a pick your spots type of night, but never anything that was trending for me at that point. I was a pretty, I guess for a kid, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, that's pretty normal, I guess, drinker. Like I said, no different than most other guys. Even when my first, I would say my first 3 or 4 years in the NHL, I was pretty disciplined too. Again, picked my spots. It was probably in the early 2000s that maybe I noticed that it was a long way after I'd started playing that I'd maybe noticed something was wrong. It was probably even into the 2003 season that, again, I started to identify with it. And then when the lockout happened, I'd finished off. Actually, I got traded for about the same time as it takes to drink a cup of coffee to Dallas in the 2004 season. I had to stay around at the end of the year that year. My shoulder had to get rechecked because I had another contract year left on a deal, but I had to get cleared physically. So I had to wait in Dallas. And Dallas, I mean, anybody who's been to Dallas knows that, you could do a little bit too much partying, but it was really the summer when I got home and into the lockout year of 2004 that I really, really noticed, a pattern developing. It was, you're not going to practice. I'd been in the league already like 10 years. I had a pretty good feeling I was going to get a job again. I actually thought we were going to start again. I really did. I was hoping in the new year we were going to start. It just never happened. And that ended up, I talked to a lot of guys that were kind of like, getting into their 30s at that point. And they were like, man, I don't know how I'm going to come back and play, in the kind of condition I'm in. But I don't think there was any doubt after 2004 that I had a clear problem with alcohol, and I had to do something about it. There was just no, that was the worst. And I did come back after that year. And like I told many people, the 2005, 2006 year, especially 2006, that was my 2020 for the rest of the world. It was just that bad. And I had to, again, it was all fun and games until it just wasn't fun at all.
So it wasn't. Yeah, sure. Do you, just to go back to your introduction to professionalism, there's a culture around sports in general. All men, lots of testosterone, lots of partying can look social. The Broad Street Bullies, their unofficial clubhouse was the famous bar in New Jersey. Rex's. I mean, it was part of the allure, part of the charm. No one ever, at that point, ever looked below the surface and said, hey, is everybody hitting it pretty hard? What did you see as a young hockey player when you first got there? Did you see heavy drinking around the game?
I did immediately when I got here. A lot of those older guys, I don't want to throw anyone's name out, and that's because that wouldn't be right. But a lot of the veteran guys I played with, they drank a lot of beer. I mean, when I first got to Hershey, I mean, it was, and I was talking about this with Mike Johnson. I was on the NHL Network about a month ago. We were talking about a similar subject, and I said, it's really funny. And he concurred because we both kind of came in maybe a couple of years after I did. But we go to practice. I got sent down during that, the first lockout in 1994. The fall that year, I actually made the Flyers right out of training camp. And I had to go down to play because I wasn't under mandatory contract where they had to keep me up. So they sent me down to get some more experience in the minors. And every single day at lunch, we practiced at 10:30. We were sitting at a bar at like 12:15 eating lunch. It was a burger or whatever, but there was 12, 15 guys and everyone had a beer. That doesn't mean everybody was drinking, 15, 20 beers.
Yeah.
But that's the culture, right? You practice together, you hang out together, and you go drink beer together and have a meal together. So that very much is a culture. We are the epitome, I believe, of a team sport type of player. We'll do anything for our teammates, including going through a wall for one another. And that was the culture when I played. I don't know if it's like that as much anymore now, but you were a brethren, you were a brotherhood, and you took it very seriously.
Sure. I only mentioned that culture because when someone who winds up with a substance abuse problem very often doesn't see it coming right away because of their surroundings. You didn't have the problem in your family, but a lot of people come up in the family are heavy drinkers. It may even be alcoholism that's not talked about, but the culture normalizes the behavior.
It does,
right? It doesn't look like anything's unusual here. We're pounding beers.
Yeah, and really what happened to me was I became that guy that was the guy I saw when I came into the league, at the end of it. There's young guys around and you become the guy that, you become like the drunk uncle that everybody accepts. And it's like, oh, he's been here forever. He's just a dynamite dude. He plays his ass off on the ice.
Exactly.
But that's what it was. And, kind of, I look back at that, that's never the guy. Listen, I will say this. I mean, I had drank in my career and there were probably days I showed up, many days hungover for practice. That happened, but it was really only that last little bit that I thought really, really affected both my person and the player.
Sure.
And that was the 05-06 season.
So looking back at that, do you think it was the idleness, the injuries, or something else, or depression, just undiagnosed depression that caused you to start in effect self-medicating? Were any of those factors at play when you started having a problem drinking?
I don't know. People always say you got to delve into what happened. I had a great childhood. I had great experiences in high school, prep, college. I think the pressures of being in the league, staying in the league, added up and compiled over time. I don't know if there's a history of depression in my family. I'm sure most people, if you look at the numbers, are staggering in this country, how many people are antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. So, again, I understand that very much. Whether or not that was an issue for me, I don't know. I just think that I had a lot of time on my hands. There was pressure to stay in the league. And I think another problem that adds to this, Steve, quite frankly, is you have 4 or 5 months of summer where you're not doing anything. You're sitting in 85-degree weather. You're done your workout by 2:30. That's one thing too. I stayed in shape. Really, really well. That was one thing I got kind of slapped a couple times over, like, any general manager did. But for the most part, I came into camp in really good shape, prepared.
Even while you were drinking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You had the additional burden of being what they refer to often as a high functioning substance abuse.
I play guilty or practice guilty, that's one of the big things in hockey. I'm not, when I say this, I don't say it lightly or with pride, but I had teammates that would tell the coaches, leave him alone. Just leave him alone. If he's drinking, leave him alone, because he might be, if you get on him about it, like I was one of those guys, like, why are you bothering me right now? I have a game to play in 2 days. I don't want to hear this crap.
Were people around you at some point going, Chris, man, you got to slow down?
No.
You didn't get any of that,
I did, I think there was a couple times they said, you got to, maybe Paul Holmgren or Bob Clark had said something, but, again, I'd seen addiction issues over the years within the Flyers.
Right.
I'd seen that to happen to other guys. So again, I was always one of those guys, like, I never wanted to throw it in anyone's face that, I was drinking or whatever it was. I didn't want to rub it in to a point where, listen, I just did my thing. I didn't want to involve anybody else. But I remember, like, even Keith Primo, who was the captain, he's like, just leave this guy alone. The guy plays hard every night. He's prepared to play. We never talked, like, I never came in after a period and said, you got to go harder. No, that's an awful period. It never happened. And I was playing. People say maybe nobody ever played quite as good guilty as I did. That may be true, but one thing I knew is when the jersey was on, I was ready to play, and I came to play hard. And that's the way I was raised.
That's the way you remember it. I spoke to a fellow the other day, hockey fan, mentioned we were going to do this, and he went, "Oh, Bundy, I still remember when, I guess it was your rookie year, or no, he said that I still remember when Crosby came. First time they faced Crosby, Bundy cross-checked. It just smashed him. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Anyway, so how bad did it get? It got bad. Were you blackout drunk drinking?
I was everything. I was a full Nelson. You know what? I can make light of it now. I guess going back into, I just say lastly for my career, other than the end for me, I had a great run. A remarkable run of many happy, positive, strong years. Would have loved to have won a cup here, but how bad did it get? This is always the fun part. So the 2005 season, I actually remember playing the first half, and I was on a league minimum contract. I didn't care. I was happy to be back playing, and I thought I could control. I already knew at that point I had a problem. So I would try to not drink, because I knew if I did pick up at that point, I was off to the rodeo. Like, I was gone. And actually in January, I went back to get a puck behind the net. And Robert Esch, the goaltender, came out to play it. He didn't see me. And as I turned to grab the puck to wheel around the net, he turned and my head hit his shoulder, and I had a concussion. And I had concussion problems pretty much my whole, most of my career. Guys do. Back then you get your bell rung, you shook it off, and you're back out there a minute or two later. That's another question people have asked me too, Steve, is, do you think concussions had anything to do with it as it progressed through your years? That one to me actually might make a little bit of sense. I had 6 concussions, and all of them were really bad. I had one that was actually It was like the video that they showed trainers around the league of what a serious head injury would look like. And it was actually a play. I went to hit a guy. I banged my head 3 times on the same play, and it was ended up spitting ice face down at the end of it. So again, I don't know, but in terms of my drinking that year, so I hit Robert Esch. I went back. I had a concussion. Couldn't see. Like had really bad nighttime driving vision. I didn't even want to drive. And then what happened is the Olympic break came that year about the same time. So everybody had to get away from the rink. Well, I didn't look at it like I got 3 weeks to heal. I got, wow, I got an open pass. I can go drink now. And what happened I went up to Canada. We went skiing. It was just, one of those things. Guys did go away for the Olympic break. I'm still kind of around the team. And then when I got back, I was fully on my way. I mean, I couldn't even play anymore. I couldn't tell the difference anymore between what was a concussion and what was alcohol. I would drink myself sober most every day. It was that bad. It really was. So to tell you just how bad my 06 got, the season ended. I'd actually, a couple of years earlier, had a horse. I owned a hoof of a horse that ran in the Kentucky Derby, and went down to Louisville. That was kind of a mess, but it was really what transpired after that. I'd finally said enough is enough. It was probably at that point, getting to 2 years where I knew okay, I got a problem here and I don't like it. My kids were young. I just didn't want, I'd always known the effects of whether it was alcoholism or addiction inside a house. So I didn't want that to be something. I sure knew that at the time, that my family didn't want that either. I wanted to eliminate it, and I had to make the choice. So I called early June and said, June 1st. And I said, I need help. And I was scared. I was scared all year to go to, whether it's Bob Clark or Homer, and said, I need help. On top of my concussion, I got a drinking problem. They probably knew already. But what happened in June is I called the league, and they were great. Said, we're going to get you to rehab. We're going to call you back tomorrow. And the doctor came down to Philadelphia, just wanted to take a look at me and looking for any kind of open signs of, that we got to do something right away. And that wasn't the case. So I looked healthy enough at that point. But on June 10th, June 11th, we got a call on a Sunday morning. My parents were down that my sister had collapsed at her house. She didn't have any kids. She had a boyfriend. She's 32 years old. And she had a cardiac event and lost so much oxygen in that span that she died 6 days later. I was there. I watched I watched her die. It was at that stage in my life, here I am. I was drunk. I was just a function, just keeping myself going. So it was 2 weeks. I had to keep myself going for my family. My kids here did not go up. My wife joined me. I couldn't have thought of a worse. It's almost like I'd been sent to hell, and then someone gave me an extra kick down and said, "Go down a little further. You're not quite down far enough." So it was the worst month of my life. There's no other way to put it. My only sibling and one of my best friends, maybe my best friend was dead. She, someone I shared stories with about my drinking was how much I wanted that to come to an end, and how much she knew that I wanted to do that. So it wasn't a long journey with it, but she'd seen enough of it to know it was a problem. And so we got through the funeral, and I was home for about another 10 days. Just alone everywhere. I didn't, I'd go park my car in the woods and just sit there. I didn't even want to be around anybody. And it was about July 7th, 6th that the league had called. I kept in touch with them, and they said, you know what? I'll never forget it. The league told me, the NHL doctor said, don't stop drinking. Whatever you do not stop drinking. Don't be a hero, because, you can go into really bad DTs without alcohol, and you could die.
People don't understand detoxing from alcohol is probably the most dangerous detox that can occur. The idea that you can cold turkey alcoholism is, you're right, it's dangerous.
It really is. So that's where I was, and I finally I got through that time. My wife and an old friend of mine had driven me to Karen, which is up in Wernersville, PA. It was the closest one, but an hour and 40 minutes from my front door. So I thought, well, if it's going to be somewhere, I may as well be close. And we had 3 little girls at the time. I went to the Rehab. They dropped me off, and I went into it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I went in and they gave me the test, and my blood alcohol level was a 0.63. The lady, the nurse.
You're lucky you didn't burst into flames spontaneously.
I know if they actually, you're right. If they would have cremated me, I would have been burning for 6 months. But you know what? Like, but seriously, she kind of looked at me like, oh my God, like that this is incredible. So she's like, give me a sec. So she called the league, and the doctor said, I think he's going to be high, but just get another machine. And it was the same number, 0.63 again. And the lady looked at me. She goes, we've been open 50 years here, sir, and we've never seen anything like this ever. She goes, we've had people check in at a 0.4. They were dead 2 hours later.
Overachieving once again.
You know what? I guess somebody was on my side looking over me, and you know, the doctor called me 2 days later. They do all those tests on your liver and your blood and all that. The guy basically said, if you hadn't been playing the highest level of sports in the world for the last 20 years, whatever it was at that point from college, he said you'd be dead.
Yeah. How did you? So did you go to the rehab? It's 30. Were you there 30 days?
I was there 30 days. Yeah.
And was that it was your first trip into rehab? Were there subsequent trips into residential? No. Okay. So it took for you. You're very lucky, as you know. People can go multiple times to treatment until it they either OD or they get it. Do you think that your discipline as an athlete helped you in your rehab?
It certainly kept me in a state of mind that nothing about this was right. I mean, I knew that right away. The problem is with alcohol is it keeps knocking on your door, right? Like, come on, it's okay. It's cunning, baffling, powerful, right? That's what we hear all the time. So, from my standpoint, I think that there probably was. I was not I want to say, like, I wasn't a dumb person. Like, I wanted to have a great kids and a great family. And and again, when I stopped, those rewards came to fruition through, the accomplishments of my kids and the people that they become, because I believe I stopped drinking. But yeah, I think that probably the fact that I was a pro athlete, the fact that I played in a town as demanding as Philadelphia, with as much pride as it does, I think absolutely maybe helped push me over the top, but also get me back on the right road again.
Yeah, we're talking to Chris Therien, whose career in both hockey and broadcasting were stellar, and this town, he's been around as long as anybody else. We're going to pick up on Chris's story straight ahead. I want to just pause to do a little housekeeping here, Chris. Here on the corner, we need your help in terms of feedback. So if you have the occasion to like us or follow us on any of those platforms, if you could write a review, we'd appreciate it. Nobody likes criticism, but we're not afraid of it. So if we're doing something wrong or we can do something better, give us a review. I think you can do that on iTunes. So anyway, Behavioral Corner, look for us.
At Retreat Behavioral Health, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 and begin your journey today.
Chris Therien, Chris, let's talk about that moment. I mean, there's a lot of confusion in the lay public about what goes on when somebody finally says, I got to get help. They refer to hitting bottom. That's a very nebulous place. A bottom can be different places for lots of people. You seem to have an awareness of the problem, hit a wall with your sister's sudden and tragic death. But more importantly than where your bottom was that insight, which you had for a period of time, where you knew you had a problem. A lot of people with substance abuse issues take a long time to get to that.
I think when, just going back to, a little bit of what I said, I think I knew I had a problem, and I recognized it, immediately. My bottom, I mean, in terms of the way I felt as a human being, I don't think I could have ever felt worse than the day we buried my sister. I mean, that to me was, the absolute worst. I mean, so if it was at a bottom that you're drunk, your only sibling's dead at 32 for no real good reason. you know, it's funny with that, when I look at that whole journey to sobriety, you know, I look at that, I went to rehab and I got out and I got till about May, 2 years later. So almost 22 months I got sober. And it's funny, you know, I wasn't really living the life of someone who's happy sober. I was just abstaining from not drinking. And I was, you know, again, and I think your mind and your body and your heart probably doesn't necessarily understand who you become. And there's a lot of guessing at the time. You know, I look, when you talk about broadcast, and I remember, it was 2006, 2007 was my first year out. Unfortunately, it was a lot of the veterans on our team's first year out of the league. And Keith Primo was asked to do the pre and post game show. And he went in one night and he called me, he goes, dude, that is the worst job on the history of the planet. Pre-game and post-game for the Flyers. He goes, it's awful. He goes, do you want to do it? And I said, sure, I'll do it. Like, what else am I going to do? It gets me out of the house. I get to watch hockey still, which I loved. So that's how the whole thing started. And then they started calling me and said, you want to do the game tonight? I said, sure, I'd be happy to do it. So that's how my broadcasting career got started. I did a great job there for a couple of years, and the Flyers liked my work so much they asked me to do radio. And that turned into, you know, a TV job, which was, it was a little odd at the end, but radio was, I loved radio. Radio was just unbelievable working with Tim Saunders. We had great chemistry together. We had a lot of fun. And that's how my path after it started. So I said, I had 2 years almost sober. And I wanted to test the waters. You know, I wanted to see, 22 months, I haven't drank, you know, it's not really been, it was on my mind, maybe a little bit, but not a lot. But I decided I was gonna try something, and I did. And like I always say to people now, I wish I didn't. Relapse is not a requirement, but it was for me. When I look at it, it showed me for the last time, and it was a different kind of relapse. I probably went back out for a couple of years again. It was never like it ever was again. You know, I'd gotten past those stages of my sister dying. And when I did drink, it was very, very, very private thing, whether it was in my room, quietly at home. I tried to hide it from people as long as I could. And, my wife saw it and the kids did again. My oldest one, especially. And again, it was not every day like it was when they were younger. So now it was very much more like, man, what did I do? But I realized it again that the difference this time was I had some medication that helped me stop to detox myself. And that's probably why it went on for a little bit longer than I wanted it to. That kind of was, an interesting 2.5 year phase where, again, I think you mentally get to a point where you're just like, you know what, enough. I'm a big boy now. You got a lot of good things going on in your life. You're doing radio, and I was very disciplined in terms of that, in terms of broadcasting, but that's how I got into it. It kept my head in the right place, but it was really when I got that last part, Steve, where I said, this is enough. Like, I can't do this anymore. It was February 7th, 2011, where I didn't realize that would be my, it was actually January 7th, 2011. And it's kind of a funny story, but I was upstairs cleaning my closet. I was picking up clothes, and in this old shoe, I found this water bottle of vodka. People always put the stuff in water bottles. There was like 1 ounce in it. And I took it and I slammed it. And I said, that's the last day. It's the last thing I ever drank. Since February 7th. So it was a month after I swigged that last thing, and it's been nothing but amazing things ever since. It really has.
Yeah. It's that moment, and I've heard it many, many times. There are some common threads. I always say to people, all stories of substance abuse and recovery are the same, except they're different. But they do bear lots in common. And that moment when people, it's not about morality or ethics or anything, it's the awareness that this ain't working.
Right.
It ain't working anymore.
Yeah.
I got to try something else. So you get to that point, and have a just a great and successful recovery period. 10 years now sober. At what point in the past 10 or 15 years did you begin to realize that wasn't enough for you just to get yourself together, that maybe you could help somebody else? When did that happen?
Well, I've been an AA guy, and when I had my sponsor, we finally got together, and I really got my head screwed on the right direction. And it was a fast 10 years. I'll tell you that. Like, it really was one day at a time. I didn't overcomplicate it. I just knew that I'd lost. and I was never going to win. I was never going to find a happy median where me and alcohol were ever going to get along. So I knew that, and I'd been down that road. It's like getting back in the ring, time and time again with the same guy. It's like the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. That was going to be the same result every single time. And, the old saying in this too is, you start off a cucumber and you become a pickle. You don't go back to becoming a cucumber anymore. You're a pickle for life. So, I had to understand that. And when I finally did, things got far, far better for me.
And you felt that you had something you could share with other people, and not just because it's an uplifting story, because you thought you could help them. So you have purchased a treatment facility in the Fishtown neighborhood of Philadelphia. Yep. How did that come about? It's Limitless Recovery, right?
Limitless Recovery Center, yeah, and it's it's Limitless Recovery Centers.com. But so what happened was about 5 years ago, I got approached by a group of people that said, "Hey, do you mind if you think we could use your likeness and start? We heard you were in the program. You go to AA, and we'd like to see if you have any interest at all of opening a treatment center." They had other people put in place, and it never really came to fruition. But it certainly piqued my interest at the time, saying, "Hey, you know what? I have no problem sharing my story." I mean, it's a lot of people knew it. Close friends of mine have all known that story for years. Like that. I got 10 years. Like a lot of people, like, "Oh my God, I didn't know." Like no one ever knows, right? Who had a problem before if you don't say anything. So I decided that I was going to fulfill this. I got I got fired by the Flyers and fired by NBC in the fall. I've never really given a reason, and that's fine. It's been a really bad year for a lot of people, and I understand that. That being said, I've always been a doer. I'm not a guy who's going to sit around and whine and cry because I don't get to do post-game anymore. That's just life. So I said, what would be something that would keep me tethered to Philadelphia, to keep me going over the bridge, and more importantly, to keep an outreach to the community. And that would be through what would be my roots all along, a blue collar path of playing hockey. We see it enough, like we talked about earlier, I see a lot of beer drinking and inside the hockey community, sports community. So I've seen people my own struggle. With kids I have in college now, I hear the stories of kids dying on college campuses or high schools. That breaks my heart, kills me to hear that. So I wanted to do something about it. And I'd found a couple partners. We decided that, let's leverage your name. Let's leverage, your the time you spent in the city to try to get people the help they need, whether it's, alcohol, drug abuse, mental health. That's what we do. That's what I do now. I mean, and there's not a single person that I won't reach out to if they call and ask for help. I feel very, very grateful to have this opportunity. And I'm excited for Philadelphia. We got a spot in Fishtown. There's not a lot exactly downtown to treat people. It's conveniently located. And again, we have nothing but good intentions. We just want to give people the support they need. We have sober living as well, which is a key component for aftercare. We are an aftercare facility, an IOP. But again, if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, Chris, it's happened numerous times since we started. I have a drinking problem. Can you help me?" Yes, I can. What do you need? Where are you at? Most of the time people that are drinking need detox. Just because we don't have a detox, we have, plenty of relationships with all the detoxes regionally, locally. And the same thing for extended care. They'd like to come to us after. That would be great too. Our IOP at Limitless, who's just a time. But that's how it started.
IOPs are critical because
the
the old notion that you found a treatment facility somehow or another, got yourself there, and 28 days later, if you were Sandra Bullock, you met a really cute doctor and married him. And I tell people, yeah, well, it ain't like that. And everybody in the field and who experienced this in their lives knows that getting straight, getting sober, no matter what the abuse is not a thing. It's a process. It goes on for a long time, but you don't cure this stuff, you manage it. And IOPs are important, sober living facilities are important. So you are, and the industry welcomes guys like you into the field, I can tell you, because I know a lot of people in that business. Certainly in the city of Philadelphia, can use all the help we can get. 5 years from now, where do you want to be? What do you want to see Limitless Recovery Centers doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what? To me, I want to keep expanding. We're in Philadelphia right now. I've had tons of calls about New Jersey. People down in New Jersey to help. It's harder to get them over the bridge. So I think step two would probably be opening a place in New Jersey. Ultimately, 5-year plan is kind of where we're at. And then the thought process going in was to have 4 of these places, whether one in New Jersey, the one in Fishtown, maybe somewhere out in Westchester area. Try to corner the market essentially, and then have it capped off with a detox at the end. Really, no one can do anything until they get, as you just said, Steve. So you get that detox, because again, you're managing it, and until you get the drugs and the alcohol out of your system, you're not really going to find a path forward under those type of circumstances. So that's the plan. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. We're really, really focused on buttoning up this one place right now, our place in Fishtown. We're looking into new buildings right now, and we have a lot of really good things going around. But one of our goals as well too is, because Fishtown is a pretty cool little area and it's getting built up a little bit, we want to develop and have a sober community down there. People that have come, whether it be alumni, people that want to just come out and hang out outside, out front of the building. We have tables, chairs, coffee. If they want to come over and join us, we want to have that. It's an important thing, and make sure that people are aware, keep people aware. So whether it's open concert venues on Girard or something we can work out with that area, we want people to know that, hey, we're very much part of Philadelphia. We're very much part of Fishtown, and we want them to understand that it's a place that we care for you, whether you're in treatment with us or you're just somebody who's really working at it. We want to see your face. And that's really the message that we get out to people. The guys and our clinicians are just amazing as well. Unbelievable how impressed I was when I met them. We retained them when we bought the business. Just amazing people. So the team we have are amazing. I couldn't be happier and more thrilled about it. I feel confident. I wouldn't want to just put and again, I've told people this, I'm not a name on the building or just a face that they put in promotions. I get into the building, I talk to people, I'll give out my mobile number. I don't care. If that's what it takes to get that one person help, yep. I felt I've done my job for the day.
Yeah, that's great. And Chris, thanks so much for your time. I know the article that appeared in the Inquirer a month or so ago just ignited a lot of interest in your story. It's a remarkable story. As I said, it's interesting. Life's a funny thing, right?
It is.
All of this sort of looks like it makes sense. Regrets or no regrets, you're right exactly where you're supposed to be.
I'll cap it off by saying that every single road in my life, since I was 15 years old and I went to Northwood Prep School, every single journey, every single day that's happened has brought me on a crossroads and it pointed me right here.
Right here.
Life. That's the journey of life, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, you change one little thing and all that, and maybe a whole nother thing happens. Great success with Limitless Recovery Centers. Going forward, we're on the corner here. We're on a corner not unlike a bunch of corners in Fishtown. And anything we can do to help you spread the word, we hope you'll reach out to us and come back and see us real soon.
Thanks so much for having me on, Steve. I appreciate it. It's so great that you're getting the message out to so many people in the area as well. I truly thank you.
Chris Therien, ladies and gentlemen, Bundy, back in action.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.